All right. Let's start with Richard J. Murphy.
I've talked about artificial intelligence many times on this channel. I've talked about the fact that I think it is going to cause an economic crash several times. And every time I look at this issue, I come to the same
Sorry,
conclusion, which is that things
that's
are worse than I
bussin'.
previously thought. And that's not a mistake. That's the result of rational analysis. Most commentary that I read on AI is technologically enthusiastic, and maybe that is appropriate. I'm not arguing that there are going to be no uses for AI. Indeed, I've found some. My point is that the analysis of AI in economic terms remains naive. The scale of the risks now accumulating is so significant that I have to make yet another video on this subject, and I genuinely think it worth your while to hear this one through, because for the first time I'm going to pull four strands of thought together in a way
Ooh,
that suggests AI is really dangerous to our economic well-being right now.
that
All
is
these
true.
themes interact. Together, they point to something serious. AI is becoming a source of serious systemic economic risk, is my point.
Yeah,
One of those themes is that financial instability is going to arise from the asset bubble that we know is going on right now. And this is something I've discussed before. There is nothing new in that, but I think that the risk is getting bigger. The
it is most definitely getting bigger, but honestly, the likeliness of something very bad happening, unless something very unpredictable happens, are very low. We know that these tech companies, are propping up the US economy right now. And so if they were to stumble, it would have a big immediate impact on everybody. It will have a great impact on everybody. And it is unlikely to happen because getting the machine going for the next step. So if we imagine that GPT-6 is going to be for a the next generation, right? This is the $100 billion data center that they're supposed to build. All right, so here with the roadmap says that GPT-6 would come out around late 2026 or early 2027. The reason is that this is not going to be trained on anything that they have right now. It's going to be trained with the new data centers, with the cause of the PC market. The consumer side is going to crash. Well, crash, dry up. But yeah, so the GPT-6 generation is going to be uh, built on new data centers that have yet to be built. And so this is going to stimulate the economy and keep the valuations of these companies very high. And so far, considering this, I think it is unlikely to happen this year.
second risk I want to talk about is unemployment risk. And again, this is something I've mentioned before, but it is getting more serious. The third is a risk to inflation, and I don't think I have discussed this as part of these linked themes before, and so I want to add that into the narrative. And of course, the fourth is the infrastructure constraints, which I discussed in a video recently, but which now need to be wedded into the common themes that I'm developing here. So let's look at those 4 claims and recognize that they do not exist in isolation. They all exist within the political economy of technological change, which, when combined, mean that they reinforce each other.
Yeah.
That's why we're ending up with systemic risk. They're not isolated. They are literally threatening to drag down the whole of our economy. So, strand 1 of my concern is about asset bubbles. The global equity markets remain absurdly high. They are at record levels. We've already seen them go beyond the peaks at the end of 2025 in the first week or so of 2026. And so far, therefore, there has been no global reaction to the over.
Yeah, because there are 2 economies, right? You get the stock market economy, which is I would like to say this is the economy with a little e, and you got the regular economy with the big E. But there are effectively 2 sides. There's one that is absolutely fictive and has been imaginary for a while. And you got people living with inflation and other issues, economical aggravations. I think that's why we there's no reaction. It's all the same for everybody everywhere.
Overinflated value of AI company shares. But it remains the case that these valuations assume perfect outcomes for all the investment that is being made in AI, and there is simply very little evidence to suggest that this is going to happen. The investment that is pouring into data centers, into chips, and into energy-intensive infrastructure is not sustainable. I'm going to be exploring.
Obviously, it's not sustainable because GPT-6, well, maybe that is going to be their end game because they won't have any other choices. Because what do you get? Okay, because the difference that they need is orders of magnitudes, right? So GPT-4 was orders of magnitude more resource intensive, uh, the costs, everything was order of magnitudes compared to the preceding version. But what do you get as the next order of magnitude when you have $100 billion data center? What is the order of magnitude after that? And most likely nobody's going to want to build it because of DeepSeek. We saw that it is effectively possible to have something, let's say 80% as good, but like 100 times less expensive. Because of that, investors will not want to go to the next step, to the next order of magnitude. So the big thing here is, are we going to get GPT-6? If we get it and it's good enough, it's good enough to be implemented in companies, it's good enough to wipe out any percentage of the workforce, you're going to have a spike in unemployment. But is it going to happen? This is the big question.
Bring that a little later in this video, but the point is, at some point, this is going to be realized, and when it is going to become apparent that much of the current spending on these issues is likely to be wasted. And when we're talking about waste, we're not talking about the odd dollar or pound here or there. We are talking potentially about trillions of pounds being wasted.
Yes, because they said that, what is it? 2 trillion spending by 2030. I don't want that stupid ass story. So tech firms need to generate approximately. Oh, that ain't it.
So vast that we are discussing the entire income of whole countries going to waste as a consequence of what is happening. This is why I believe the share crash will happen. But worse than that, what we now know, and it's becoming increasingly apparent, is that there is a very high degree of risk of contagion when that share crash happens.
Obviously, because everything else is so low.
People are borrowing to buy the shares in AI companies. If the value of those shares falls, the collateral that has been provided for the loans that have been made available to the people who are buying the shares in question will collapse. And that means that banks will not be able to recover their money and there will be a market crash and not just an AI share price crash. And this is just now a question of when and not if. What is more, it is a matter of when the shadow banking system will also collapse, because the shadow banking system has provided half of the money that is likely to have been invested in these shares. And shadow banking is the parallel banking.
Yeah, because you used to have these big banks do the lending, and because of market regulations and higher scrutiny, they are unable to take the risk themselves. And so it was offloaded to these shadow banks. And so shadow banks would take the risk. But it does not mean that the risky lending has just disappeared, just been moved around in the system.
Banking system that exists outside regulation. And it is private equity funds, hedge funds, and so on, who are lenders without being subject to banking regulation. They too are at enormous risk, and if anything, at greater risk than the banking system itself, because the margins for error there are simply higher because of the lack of regulation. That then means that there is massive recessionary pressure likely to arise because of this crash. But even without a crash, my point is that this recessionary pressure is going to exist. So far, all commentators agree that AI is creating increased profit potential for large companies, but not by creating new products. The profit potential comes from cutting costs, and cutting costs means primarily reducing the number of staff who are employed or the pay rates that are paid to them, because the staff in question will be of lower grade than those who will be sacked. The point is that key people in our society will be made redundant. And that is going to have massive knock-on effects. It's going to have a knock-on effect with regard to confidence.
Oh my god! Why did you put fucking subtitles right there? I have this issue. Whenever I see them, I have to read them. I can't not read them.
That people will save rather than spend. It's going to have a knock-on effect because people quite literally will not be in employment, and rising unemployment is a trend we are already seeing in the UK and maybe in the USA, although
There are multiple factors that are aggravating unemployment. So the situation would be more dire if these models were to cause a spike in unemployment as well.
there the data is of lower quality right now because of the government shutdown in late 2025. What we do know is that overall household demand is falling, and the level of credit to support that demand is rising because incomes are already under threat. As a consequence, the demand on government spending is going to rise because there will be unemployment, and the multiplier effects within the economy are going to weaken. In other words, there will be less money coming into the economy from people in employment, and therefore there will be less for businesses to receive by way of income and to therefore spend onwards to.
Doesn't matter if they become business to businesses models.
their own employees and to invest. All of this creates a downward spiral.
I understand that, like in a classical sense, where you have this one economy that everybody participates in, um, these are the type of outcomes you would expect or imagine to happen. But because of the duplicity of the economy, most likely you're gonna see a worsening of the middle class. You're gonna have like the top 10% that are going to be able to enjoy the fruits of these autonomous companies or business to business companies. And somebody mentioned that you're most likely going to have a part of the middle class that is going to work offering services to the people in the elite. They might be like at the top of the middle class, but that's going to be it. I don't think anything else is going to be looking good. I'm pretty sure these people, the top 10%, they will prefer having certain things done by humans, by exploited humans. That's my opinion.
Of decline within the economy. And cost cutting always results in recessionary pressure, whether it's from AI.
Yeah, but cost cutting is because there are consequences, right? What if the cost cutting doesn't cause these consequences?
Or anything else. That is the outcome. And that is going to give rise to forecasts of stagnation. We're already hearing of these. People are talking about it. Job losses are expected in the UK now. I've talked about this already this year. And there are serious merchant banks who are claiming that this is the inevitable outcome for our economy in 2026.
All right, so Mr. Richard is in the UK, but you can understand that these situations are aggravated everywhere. And I think it's pretty weird that it's happening everywhere at the same time.
That AI is risking deepening recession is really something that we now have to accept as inevitable. But this has another knock-on effect, and that is that if we do get a recession, government policy should react. The trouble is, government policy on these issues has been outsourced to the Bank of England, and they now have a terrible track record in dealing with these crises. They missed 2008. They've been lousy since 2021, and since interest rates rose at that time to supposedly counter the threat of inflation, which had nothing to do with interest rates at all. And this time I'm expecting them to miss the signs that there will be an increase in pressure on employment, and they will instead look at the pressure of increased borrowing and say that it is exuberance in the market that they are worried about with regard to AI share prices rising rather than the threat to the real economy, which is reflected in increasing unemployment. As a consequence, they're not going to cut interest rates fast enough. This is where a real policy failure looms. History suggests
I mean, it is exactly the same everywhere. Powell has the same problem.
the Bank of England always reacts too slowly, and I believe they will maintain interest rates far too high for too long, which will deepen any downturn we're going to get. This is monetary policy failure in action. In other words, monetary policy is unable to deal with this sort of crisis. It is up to the government to react to a threat to employment, not the Bank of England. But at present, because we're outsourcing that policy to the Bank of England, we are going to make things worse rather than better as a result of deliberate policy choice. That therefore leads me to my fourth concern, which is the other reason why I think the Bank of England will get this wrong, which is that what we know is that AI is going to stoke inflationary pressure in 2026. This will be seen by the Bank of England in direct contrast to the threats arising from lower employment rates, and they will prefer to tackle inflation, even though there is nothing they can do with interest rates to deal with the fact that a shortage of AI chips around the world is expected to push up the cost of IT this year by up to 20%.
It's not really a shortage. But just so you know, we're in 2026. This is 20%. It's already risen. Well, okay, so this is overall, right? So like all the PC components. But we've already seen RAM skyrocket last month. Uh, I mean, I think about last week, it would have been a month since they announced that in February. I'm so stupid. You guys can't see the calendar. Anyways, in February, um, they're going to stop the consumer side, right? This was Micron, and the price shot up right away. This is going to be 20%, right? Overall. Uh, it might honestly go even worse. This is a screenshot from a slide from a unknown secret uh, agent located right there in the middle of it. Supply bit growth for commodity DRAM is projected to be constrained through 2028. Do you understand what this means? Is that if it is fucked for 20% this year, you can have just a little idea of what is going to look into 2027. And if this is anything close to reality, if we even get anywhere close to 2028, you can absolutely forget this 20%. It's going to look like chump change. Okay? This is a picture up to 2028. And the thing is, I don't remember where we saw it, but honestly, it could be up to 2029. Because you do understand how these things happen, right? 2029, that would be crazy. In any case, you can understand that this is not going to change anytime soon.
This is new inflationary pressure imported into the UK because we do not make many of these chips. Most of them are imported. And the result will be that prices will rise for consumers in a way that the Bank of England will react to, but which will be absolutely adverse for the economy itself by keeping interest rates too high. Coupled to that, there will, of course, be the environmental pressure on both energy and water, and both of those are going to keep prices high as well, wholly inappropriately, because somebody's got to pay for the new grid that is going to be required to pay for the increase in electricity demand, which may well be by more than 10% per annum in the UK, but which will fall on consumers and not the AI companies. Water
In the US, we've seen it as well.
usage will also threaten increased water prices, and we're already suffering them. The result is that we will see inflationary pressure from these sources as well, and the consequence will be twofold. First of all, we will see increased income inequality in the country as more and more people are forced to spend more and more of their disposable income on essential items and have less and less to spend on anything else. resulting in that effective reduction in the multiplier effect within the economy as discretionary expenditure falls.
Well, there's also the K-shaped part of the economy where the top 10% is going to be able to afford all of this without any issues.
Leading to a recession.
Do you think Jensen, this one here? What do you mean? I can't find. I can't. Come on, Buster. Uh, no snapshot. One snapshot. 2025. Right after our buddy's presentation. Let's just have a quick look at how much that shit cost. What, you think we won't know because you just deleted it? No fucking way. All right. So for people who can't see it, it is right under $9,000. How much of a piece of fucking shit you gotta be to get on stage with a fucking $9,000 jacket? Are you fucking serious? Bro, this is disgusting. So this here is going to be the K-shaped economy. You're gonna have this piece of shit buying leather jackets, probably crocodile leather jackets all over. This is absolutely disgusting.
Whilst at the same time, the increase in the price of technology will increase the digital divide in our society because lower income households will be excluded from access to markets and to government services as a result. And there is no sign that the government is planning any form of response to this increase in inequality of a practical nature which will arise as a consequence. We are therefore having to face a really important question. Why is AI important enough for us to have to go through a recession, an economic crash, an increase in inequality, and the abuse of our planet? What is the justification for that to happen?
It's not for us, man. It's for the companies.
I genuinely don't know the answer to that question. As I've said, I use AI. It's useful, but is it that useful? Is it worth spending this much money on something that we do not even know what it will supply as yet?
That's the thing. That's the thing. It came out and we got GPT-3, right? I said that in my other video. Why did they not wait these 2-3 years and present these models that we see now? If they would have done that, maybe we would have believed the AI lie But we've seen the progress. We've seen every iterations. We've seen you trying to shove it inside of more and more things. This is not a finished product. This is absolutely nothing. And you want people to put their medical records in it. You want people to interact with it as if it was another person. You want people to entertain relationship with it. There's just so much shit.
Shouldn't we be going slower? Shouldn't we be working out why we need this thing before we actually throw such money at it? Should the subscription models that are being used for AI be thoroughly tested because they currently look fragile before we hang our hat on them and presume the whole economy can be run on the basis of what they are offering? The fact is, we don't know the answer to any of those questions. Like all technologies, AI will reshape part of the economy without doubt, but almost certainly far more slowly than the promoters claim. My
Oh,
suggestion is
yeah.
simple. Let's go slowly then. Let's walk quietly in the direction of AI, but let's not crash the economy on the way to doing that, because the costs are arriving now, but the benefits aren't. And that's critical. The costs will fall unevenly, and they will fall hardest on those least able to bear them, and that is not accidental. It does,
Yeah.
of course, reflect power and its distribution within our society. But this means that we are facing a crisis that is being created because of a failure
Oh,
to
yeah.
sequence events inside the political economy. Technology is arising before the benefits, the costs are arising before the income. The crisis will happen before we see any upside. This is a standard story of an economic crisis. It's a story of economic risk gone out of control. It's systemic, and it demands urgent attention. Because if we don't give it that urgent attention, this coincidence of these four strands of failure, an economic crisis as a result of a stock market bubble, a resulting banking crash, an unemployment crisis, and an affordability crisis, as well as, on top of that, an environmental crisis, all of those things will literally lead us to some form of major meltdown. This isn't an incidental, this is an
Everything's there
absolute
already.
certainty, and it's going to happen, and we need to take action.
Well, it might not happen. And this is exactly why they're betting everything on it. Because if it doesn't happen, they're going to have a great success. And if it crashes, well, the economy was already in a bad shape. So,
But where is the talk of this in government planning? Nowhere. And it's that which worries me. Do our politicians care, is my question. Do they care more about AI and the promise of
what do you mean if they care? Obviously, they care. They care to give subsidies.
growth than they do about us and the risk to our well-being? It looks as though they do. And that's another reason why our current economic system has to be radically transformed. Our priorities are all wrong. We have to put people first. What do you think? There's a poll down
People first, AI down.
below.
Thanks for watching this video.
Bro, that was freaking sick.